Hey, welcome to a special edition of Super Serial. This one's a little bit different. I tried something new. I actually sat down with my buddy Jordan, aka Buzz, who is a beekeeper, and he just kind of ran me through the basics of beekeeping and bees in general, and I interrupted him a lot, and it was a lot of fun, and he handled it really well. He was pretty professional about the whole thing. He does this kind of thing fairly often where he gives these sort of presentations on what he does. But it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it, and thanks a lot to Buzz for sitting down with me and doing this. And we're probably going to do a part 2, so if you end up with any questions, after you listen to it or watch it, shoot me an email or write on anywhere on social media, and we'd love to hear your thoughts and questions so we can address it on the next one. So enjoy.
I am super duper cereal.
Cool. So we're doing something a little different today.
Yep.
Usually we're doing an interview or just a talk about whatever. But today we have Jeff Carwin on the show. I'm sorry, Buzz. We're doing a little nature lesson, I guess,
Yes.
basically. So you're a beekeeper.
Yep. Correct.
Among other things, but that's going to be the main topic of
Yes, that's
conversation.
what we're
We'll get
talking
into
about
the
today.
other stuff another time.
Yep.
You're a climber, a closet installer, and I'm sure many other things.
Yes.
But yeah, so today we're talking about bees.
Yes.
I just want to warn you, first of all, I might know more about bees than you.
Ooh,
I might know
really?
more about bees because I watched the Bee Movie
Ah.
starring Jerry Seinfeld the
Oh,
other
okay.
day.
I'll tell you what, I watched that once myself, and it was about spot on to this textbook I've read, and I was thinking, man, I've just read a 2,000-page textbook, and Jerry Seinfeld knew it all
Nailed
in an
it.
hour and a half.
Nailed it.
I was like, oh.
and it's like I might as well pack it up from there.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I was like, I'm done. I'm getting out.
That movie was so bad.
I can't actually, I'm going to have to confess something right there. I lied to you. I didn't see that
You
movie.
didn't see the you
no,
son of a bitch.
No, I didn't see the movie.
Well,
It looked horrible.
it was-
Sorry, Jerry. I apologize.
well,
I
here's-
like you. Love Seinfeld. Great show, but
Jerry won't
not your
talk
greatest
about,
moment.
Jerry won't talk about it.
no.
He won't even talk about the movie. That's
No.
how embarrassed he is.
Yeah.
But just don't waste your time. Save the hour and a half. Do anything else.
Watch this podcast.
Or sleep.
Oh, yeah.
Or
I mean, you can
just
do
go
that.
for a walk.
Yeah.
Anything.
Anything.
Do anything for that hour and a half. Do not watch the movie. It was so the plot was so convoluted. The jokes were just laid on too thick and they were bad. And I could see the thread of the limited information I have about bees. I could see where they tried to kind of weave it in and make it entertaining, but it was like they missed every opportunity to be educational.
Yes.
Because ultimately the lesson was bees are important for life on the planet. That was the ultimate lesson.
Yes.
And obviously we'll get into all that.
Yes.
But that the way they got there was just so like I just got lost along the way, and then eventually I was like, well, if that was the point, why did all this other stuff happen? This could have been an hour and 15-minute movie. It would have been fine. You wouldn't have had to pack in, all the jokes and it was bad. It was very bad.
Yes.
But anyway, so you do this fairly often. You kind of
Yes.
give a little lesson on bees and beekeeping
Okay.
and stuff
Yep.
like that. So I'll just kind of let you do your intro.
So my name is Jordan Braswell. I'm from
AKA Buzz.
AKA Buzz. That's what they call me. AKA the Barefoot Beekeeper.
Okay.
Also,
I like that.
Also
Little
a nickname.
alliteration.
Yep, because I have a tendency, bit of a hippie, I guess you would call it. Some
Okay.
would call it. I don't like to wear shoes in summertime. It's comfortable. When I check the bees, you feel
Got to ground yourself.
grounded to earth. Be
feel
one
it,
with
yep,
nature.
feel the cool grass.
But I own White Oak Honey Service. It's a little beekeeping company that
what is it again?
White Oak Honey Service.
White
I have
Oak
a
Honey
Facebook
Service,
page,
okay.
and it's a little beekeeping company I have. And what I do is, obviously I have honeybees and I sell honey and stuff. But my main thing I do a share program, and what that is I teach people can get into beekeeping,
Okay.
and they don't necessarily have the experience or know where to go or what they have, but they want their own hive, so they can come to me. And what they do is I set them up for them. I charge them a yearly fee.
That's cool.
And they go out and they buy the hives. and I will maintain their hive for them. They can work on their hive with me and learn the process and all that. But I'm losing my train of thought.
Well, okay, so with that kind of
but yeah, we're gonna go into that later. So, but that's not what we're gonna talk about today. Today's just a lesson.
Okay.
Beekeeping 101.
Fair enough.
We're not gonna go in that path. But do you want to just dive into it?
Let's just dive in, man.
We're gonna start talking about parts of the hive.
Okay.
All that good stuff.
Okay.
And I got a couple little examples here and the tools that we use. We're gonna start with the basic thing: your smoker.
Smoker.
So your bee smoker. All it is a little chamber.
Yep.
A fire.
I'm seeing, just to describe for audio people only,
Yeah.
there's a metal cylinder. It's got like kind of a heat protection kind of cage around it.
So you don't burn your
handle.
hand. Yep.
And sort of like a billow. I guess
That's correct.
Yeah.
It's a billow.
Yep.
And so what it does is you can put anything down in there. I have, in this particular moment, I have some denim.
Some old jeans.
Yep, some old jeans, just tore up blue jeans. They hold an ember well.
It smells very nice.
Yes. I used it today. I used it today. And but it creates a good ember and creates a good thick smoke, and that's what you want. And so the question is next, so obviously
you want kind of, I imagine, like some smoldering.
Yeah,
kind of
and
right?
yes, yeah.
Versus just like a quick.
You don't want it burning.
You don't want to fill it with newspaper.
No, because if you have 13 hives to check, it might take you 2 hours.
Right, and you don't want to have to keep packing.
You don't. No, once you get started, you want it to last the whole entire time that you're doing. You don't want to have to stop.
Okay. I want to
go ahead.
I want to just do a little tangent real quick.
Okay.
Now, apparently there's a mushroom that I don't remember what it's called, but there's a mushroom that is commonly used to, back in the times when people had to carry around an ember.
Mm-hmm.
There's a certain kind of that Paul Stamets guy. Mentioned it.
Yes.
That you can light it and it stays in ember for a very, very long time. Is there any sort? Do you know of anybody using that mushroom?
No, just most beekeepers, the denim, it works the best. Burlap
it's
sap.
It's good enough.
Yeah, exactly.
Instead of going foraging for
it's
this
just like you work.
Most
of us are blue collar people, and we wear blue jeans, and the blue jeans wear out, and so you get the old blue jeans that have holes in them. You just tear them up and throw them in your beekeeping pile. It's free. You don't have to go foraging out.
See, these are the little details that I think are interesting. That I watched that thing on Netflix the other day, and they didn't talk about what's in here.
Yeah,
that's interesting to me. You know what I mean? The little
details,
bits and pieces.
So there's actually another little piece in here, like you don't know, and all it is a 3-legged little stand with a metal plate on top and has holes in it. And what that does is that sits at the bottom of it, so that when you press the billow and it blows air into the cylinder, that it blows through the holes in the plate up into the flame
to kind of spread the air out instead of just like a jet.
Exactly. Instead of just blowing your flame right out, it helps blow on the flame.
And what do you just got like a? Oh, okay. So it's not. They're not actually connected.
No, they're not. And
so it makes it kind of
the camera right there, and that has that.
Yeah. So there's a gap in between. When you press the billows, it shoots a jet of air across a gap.
Yes.
Into the bottom of the thing, and then it gets spread out through.
That's correct.
Okay.
And a tip for beginning beekeepers also is this one right here. I think when I got it was $39.99 or $45. And it's one of the more expensive ones I've ever bought. And I had one that was like $20. And, a lot of things in life you pay for what you get.
Sure,
the case on smokers, I don't necessarily think it's the case. The old one I had was a much better smoker I had, and it was $20 less. So, don't be scared to feel like the need to go and buy the most expensive things for it. Sometimes the time and tested stuff are the greatest things out there.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, being a reef keeper, I'm not going to claim to be any kind of expert or professional at that, but there are certain analogs to what you're talking about where it's like, you can spend $2,000 on a nice LED light, but a little LED strip with blue and white will
do the job just as well.
Do the job just as not just as well, but it'll get you 75%.
Well, my complaint with this one is that it has a very thin walls on it, and so when I light it, it heats up very quickly.
Yeah.
I mean, within 20-30 seconds. And the problem with the small metal and heat is that
it's all aluminum?
I think it's aluminum, yes.
Okay.
That it bows and it moves. And so it can make the lid getting on a very pain, and it can make it where you just about burn yourself every time.
Oh, trying to get it off and on.
Yeah. And so look at your smoker before you buy it. Feel it. Make sure it's solid.
Yeah.
Look at things like that. Stuff like that can make it just makes your day easier.
Yeah.
It just makes your day easier.
So the reason for the smoker is
okay. So that's what I was getting to. So the reason for the smoker is a lot of people say that's one of the first. when you first get to a beehive.
It's an iconic image of
Yes,
beekeeping.
it's the guy in the veil
Yep.
and smoking his bees, and you're thinking, what does the smoke really do? So a lot of people say like it calms them down. That's what they say. So it does and it doesn't.
Okay.
Okay, so bear with me here. So when the bees smell smoke, their natural instinct of years of evolution and generations upon that, they think there's
to attack the eyes.
no.
Oh, okay.
No. It's going for the nose. But no. So they smell smoke. They think there's a fire nearby in the forest. They're in this box, but to them, this is just a home.
Now, I never even thought about it that way. I'm thinking like, oh, humans have so much ingenuity. They figured out all the different things they tried. Smoke, obviously there's fires in nature, and animals react to it.
And that's, and bees are no different. Now, back in the day, they didn't. They've been beekeeping, and that goes back to the early Greeks and Egyptians.
Yeah, beekeeping has been going on for thousands of years. Right?
Yes, long time. And but they didn't probably obviously know that now. But scientists have found out through science and things like that's the reason why. But the reason, so it doesn't necessarily calm them down like I was getting at.
Yeah.
They think there's a fire in the forest, and so they start packing their bags. They release some pheromone, and they'll all start eating the honey in the hive because they think there's a fire coming. So it's just like your neighbor's house, three houses down's on fire, it's burning, and the fire's coming this way, but you got a little bit of time. So what do?
Start getting up your important stuff.
You get your stuff out of the house.
And they don't have many things. They have the babies, they have the honey.
And so they move what they can.
Right.
And what they can move is the honey.
Right.
The honey. And the honey is their food. It's a food supply.
They don't gather the babies up.
They can't. No. They're just not able to.
They'll make more babies. It's fine.
Yes. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so they start eating all the honey, and so what that does is, a beekeeper, they're not focused on you. And they're just not paying
because
no
it's
attention.
A crisis.
You've
simulated a crisis, yeah. Okay.
So your house, the fire gets to you, and your house is on fire, and a robber runs in to steal your TV. You're gonna chase in after him? Don't take my TV.
That's really a cool way to put it.
Yeah,
Okay.
You're like, what is this guy doing? We gotta
Insurance
get out
will
of
cover
here.
it. It'll be fine. Yeah, insurance will take care of it.
We gotta get out of here.
Yeah.
So that's the smoker. And like I said, we'll go into more on the bees and the behaviors a little bit later on. And the talk.
I'll tell you what, that's the thing. If you're gonna rob houses, do it out in California. The forest fires, nobody's around, nobody's paying attention.
Right here.
It's all gonna burn. I'm not talking about being an arsonist. I'm saying if the house is already on fire, miss the stuff in the house.
I don't know. You walk in and like, where's the TV? There's no burned up TV.
Yeah, I don't know. There should be a pile of melted plastic and electronics here, and they're just whatever. Write it down. TV was $1,000. Whatever.
No, whatever. Right off. So next we'll get to the veil.
Okay.
And most beginning beekeepers, I recommend a full jacket and gloves and things like that. You don't necessarily need to buy the pants. Mm-hmm. Your blue jeans will suffice. I mean, if you're really worried about getting stung, you really don't want to get stung, you can buy the pants and the cut down the likelihood. Obviously, there's no guarantee you won't get stung. You're dealing with bees. They can get you through your pants if they pull them the wrong way on you.
Yeah, right.
You can get stung.
Yeah, I mean, what would you say is the average length of the stinger? Like,
It's small.
I mean, it's probably like a 1/16 of an inch or something?
Oh, it'd be in millimeters.
Yeah.
It's size of a pinhead. I mean,
right. But I mean, if they can get, what are your pants are probably about 1 millimeter thick, a pair of jeans?
Yeah, I mean, probably maybe something like that. Probably smaller than that. Yeah. I don't know. But yeah, and when there's a difference between stings as well, you can get stung and they'll pop you and you just brush it off and like no big deal, and you'll get stung other times.
They sit there for a minute and really pump it in there.
Exactly, they get the venom in you and it don't tickle. I'll say that. You get used to it the more it happens.
Sure.
I'm at the point where I got stung on the face the other day. I didn't have got cocky and didn't have my mask on and any of that, and I popped the top on it and got me right here in the face right away. But I was like, oh man, that stinks. And the bad part about being stung is that it releases the pheromone, and so it agitates all of them. At that point, that robber ran into your house and he shot your sister.
Yeah, right.
And so you're like, screw the fire, screw the fire. We're getting this guy.
So I just want to go back to the smoke thing real quick. So you're saying that the bees have this instinct where they smell the smoke and they think that the hive is compromised.
They naturally
they want to leave.
They naturally start. When you look down in the hive, the bees will be crawling around on the side of the hive,
right?
On the frames and things. And then once you smoke them, you can actually see there'll be nothing but a little butt sticking out.
Yep.
And what they're doing is they're eating that honey in that comb. They're trying to fill up their honey sacs.
So you could be going into the hive for any number of reasons to check it out or to find, whatever.
Yeah.
I don't even. will sound stupid trying to list reasons.
Go ahead.
But that's not the point.
Yes.
My point is that you're telling the bees there's a potential crisis coming, and so but obviously the hive there's no fire coming.
Yes.
So did they kind of like realize at a certain point that
yes,
that's
so
okay and they
that
just go back
the
in
coast was clear. Okay,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
you started packing your stuff up, and you smelled the smoke, and you get halfway through packing up, and the firefighters get the fire out, and you're safe.
All right,
The flames never got to your house.
Right.
You never had to leave.
But they do realize, so they don't actually leave. They just get ready to
They
leave.
just get ready. They,
Okay.
they start packing up. You start
Okay.
finding the albums and pulling them out.
Okay. So my next question is: you say they start trying to eat the honey. Obviously, they can't eat all the honey.
No.
Are they eating the honey because they just want to have a full belly
Yes,
for wherever they're going to
take
go?
with them, supplies.
Because they turn the nectar into honey.
That's correct.
They can't take honey in and then put the honey back. They're just getting energy.
They have a sack. They have a sack. They can carry it.
Oh, okay.
And they can move it to the next hive.
Is it the same sack that carries the nectar?
See, I don't want to say it is. I don't think there's two different sacks.
Okay.
And there's the nectar and the stomach. And when they're doing the fire thing, I'm pretty sure they're putting it in both. But I don't want to say that. I hate to say things.
Yeah.
That I'm not exactly. It's a gray area.
Sure. Okay.
And no, they probably
But
fill
it's probably that
my opinion. If I'd have to guess from what I know, they would fill up both.
Okay.
They'd fill up their stomach, and fill up their nectar sac.
Right. So part of it is gaining energy for the journey because they're going to have to build a new hive.
Yeah, and if they have any left, they'll regurgitate it and put it back in the hive. But the main reason that what they'll do with that probably is start to build honeycomb. But we'll get to that as well. That's farther in. That's when we're going to get into the rest of the things I've brought with us.
Okay.
The box full of bees and stuff. Hope they don't get out.
Yeah. There may or may not be a box of bees in front of us. We'll find out in a minute. I don't know.
But so the veil, and this is a light veil. That's all it is. It's not the suit, not the jacket.
Right.
I've been beekeeping now for 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
But probably going on 6 now actually.
Wow.
And so it's hot. In the summertime, beekeeping's a summer activity, and it's hot usually when you're checking your bees, and those suits are very hot. And then once you get comfortable, I go in every hive thinking I might get stung once.
Yeah.
But, they don't bother me that much anymore. And so
do they kind of like get your vibe or anything?
I feel like they do.
Yeah.
I was thinking...
Because you have an intention going into the activity. You're not... Because if you were a predator, you would have a certain... I wonder how they...
It's like a dog that's, the saying that does a dog smell fear?
Right,
right. Does a dog smell your fear?
It could be argued that bees are maybe a more complex organism.
Oh, I would argue that all day.
Yeah.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Oh.
Because they have all kinds of magnetic sensors and all kinds.
There's still things that we don't understand about them.
Yeah.
And we've had them for 3,000 years as our pets.
Yeah.
We've had dogs for 300. We know pretty much about everything about dogs.
So we can say it's a solid maybe that they can feel your intention going into the situation. And that's the thing. If there's thousands of bees in your hive, and maybe they can't sense your intention, there's going to be one psychopath bee in there that's just like, fuck it, I don't care what this is, and just comes in and stings you.
So that bee has a job and has a name, and again,
holy shit.
Later on in the conversation, we're going to get to that.
Well, yeah, sure.
All right, stay tuned.
Okay.
But so, going back, I want to touch on that again. What you're talking about there. I remember one time we were at a beekeeping meeting, and the 2 seniors in the club, 2 good older gentlemen, wear overalls.
If you didn't know, they're beekeeping clubs.
Yes, so beekeeping. Yeah. Every county has a beekeeping club in North Carolina. They meet once a month.
Of course,
it's always different.
Yeah.
You can call your county office, and they will give you all the supplies and things you need and information you need, resources like that. To learn to beekeep if you want to get into beekeeping.
That's awesome.
Polk County has one. I know Asheville, Buncombe County, I guess it would be.
Buncombe County, yeah.
And Hendersonville County.
Henderson County.
Yeah. I'm new to the area. Forgive me. But I know they have them. I know Rutherford County has one. For a fact. A lot of great people. So we were at a meeting though one time, and we were doing a demonstration on a hive, and I walked up and I had a friend with me, and I was teaching her how to beekeep that summer. Mm-hmm. And she knew quite a bit already, but I was just showing her, building on the knowledge and showing her what I knew. And we were at a beekeeping club, and they were doing a demonstration of the hive.
Flexing your knowledge a little bit. Yeah,
yes,
sure.
And we were doing a demonstration of the hives. And so the 2 old men were leading, and I was just sitting back watching. And everybody had a beekeeping suit except for me, the 2 old men, and the girl that I was with. And she was like, should I get a veil? I'm like, no, you don't need a veil. You'll be fine. I was like, you'll be fine. And the bees, you know, at one point it was a little windy. They got a little riled up, and it was funny. They never touched the three of us. But my friend, she ended up getting stung. Well, bless her heart, she'd always get stung, you know. I don't know. Maybe she was just like, looked like a flower to
They
them.
can smell the fear.
And
She was afraid.
And maybe she was a little bit nervous, you know, because there was other people that had the suits on, and they were kind of bothering them a little bit by the whole time. You know, we were standing the closest to the hive, and, you know, they never really bothered us. And I don't understand that. But... excuse me. I know that bees are temperamental from day to day.
Yeah.
You know, just like we wake up on the wrong side of the bed, they'll wake up on the wrong side of the bed. Things aren't going right that day. The flow isn't very well.
Yeah.
And excuse me. And like maybe it's windy out that day, or
Sure.
maybe it's really hot that day. And there's just the things aren't going right in the system. They're a factory. They're a society.
Yeah.
And it's just like when you're stuck on the freeway. And you got bad weather, and everybody's just kind of mad, and all of a sudden there's a fire, and bam, there's that guy that comes every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And pokes and prods you, you know,
Yeah,
and you're like, not this time. And they're just mad that day. And they can be a hassle, and on those days, I always keep my gloves and my suit with me, because I'll run into that hive, and you just can't mess with it.
Can you tell before you get
No,
there? Like,
not till I get
okay.
stung like 4 or 5 times. After about
You
the
can't see like
after about the
like,
third
wow, the
time,
hive's a little loud
No.
today. They must be.
after about the
nothing.
third sting, I back out, and I'm like, I gotta get some more protection
Get geared
on.
up,
Yeah,
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
gotta get and usually as I'm running away, swatting at bees
Yeah.
and screaming, they sting me
there's
two
your
more,
answer,
sting
yeah.
me two more times.
Yep.
No, but yeah, and so but there's different things you need. I would recommend at least a jacket and a full
Sure,
veil for a
sure.
first year. By your second year, if you feel comfortable enough, maybe you feel comfortable to begin with, you know, go for it.
Yeah,
I'd wear gloves. I recommend. I get stung in my hands a lot, so I don't wear gloves. It's a lot easier because you have more dexterity, obviously,
right.
to work the hive without gloves. But obviously, your hands are right there by the bees. And so you get stung in the fingers a lot, and that's
Pretty clear to them that's not a bee.
yeah, and it's a very painful place to get stung. If
Yeah.
you depending on how you react, it's funny. Sometimes I react, I'll swell up really big, and I'll stay swollen for 3 days. Other times I get stung, and within 20 minutes, like that one on my face, I thought I was gonna swell up, and I was
Yeah,
like,
it's
oh,
like
God.
while you're talking, I'm kind of trying to like look for the. I don't see anything.
No.
Yeah.
And like I got done, I went for a run afterwards at Lake Lure, and I was thinking, man, I'm sure by the time I get to the top of this run, I'm gonna have a giant mark, like swell up my face. And I noticed it as I was running, the pressure going down, and it quit swelling. I'm not sure if that was because of physical activity or
Yeah,
the
I'm
blood
sure it could
rushing
be
to
a
the
lot
other
of
muscles and
yeah.
stuff like that. I don't know, but other times I don't react at all.
Yeah.
But so. Like I said, first
Interesting.
year, gloves, suit. By your second year, if you're feeling comfortable enough, you can get your lightweight veils a lot more comfortable
Sure.
to wear. Like I said, working your hive is not nearly as hot. And then if you do, keep your gloves and suit, obviously. And that way, and once you get your second veil, you can teach somebody else to beekeep.
Cool.
All right. So, that's pretty much it of the supplies you need. The basic starter pack without the bees.
Right.
Things you have to have. A hive tool.
So I got my smoker, I got my veil, I got my gloves, maybe my suit.
Yes.
I call Jordan, I say, hey man, I want some bees.
There you go.
You show up with...
Yep. So no. So that's where the process
Okay.
starts. That's where the process starts. So you don't actually have to have none of that. If you just want, a lot of my customers are just like to have honeybees. They're just trying to do their part, and they enjoy the honey, and they just want to keep bees on their property. They're beautiful,
like
magical creatures.
Way back in that corner of the field back there.
No, they're very friendly. They're very friendly. Until they get
unless they're not,
until they get to your porch, until they get on your porch, and then you're like,
well, they have a lot of work to do.
Yes,
You know, if
and
you're
that's
not
why you give
messing
them
with
space.
them,
Let them do their thing.
Yeah.
They're all girls, so treat them like men. Treat them like ladies.
Give them their space.
Give them their space.
Don't I know it?
They're working hard. Leave them alone. Leave them alone.
Yep.
But like I said, we're not gonna do the contract thing today.
Yep.
We're not gonna talk about that because we can go on for hours about that.
Sure.
We're just gonna talk about bees and the parts of the hives and things you would need if you wanted to be a beekeeper and you were just wanting to learn some basic information of where to start, parts of the hive, name of the hives,
and basic bee stuff.
and and basic bee behavior and traits, and just very interesting, cool little facts about bees.
Well, we're doing great so far.
So, next thing I have is called a super. I'm just going to hold it up. There ain't really enough room. This one is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 frame super. They may come in, I think, 8 and 14.
So what you have is a wooden, basically a frame.
A wooden box, non-treated wood.
But it has it has no top or bottom.
It has no top or bottom.
Right.
And it's non-treated because of the chemicals that can hurt the bees. So
makes sense.
You know, it's finished. It's finished lumber.
These are just regular box joints on the side. And it's just nailed together.
That's correct.
Not even glue. It is glued.
It is glued.
Okay,
Both. Yeah.
Okay.
And then inside is beekeeping, the bee pollen and frames and wax.
So this is a frame here.
So this is a frame. So this is the box, and then every box is frames.
And there's like kind of almost like a filing cabinet is what I'm seeing.
Yes.
You know, all the frames rest on these rails on the
That's
sides.
correct.
Right. Yeah.
Exactly.
And there's a little bit of space in between.
Exactly.
Looks like there's space. Actually, they're built in such a way that you're forced to leave certain space in between them.
So there's a thing called bee space.
Of course. What else would it be called?
There's a thing called bee space. And bee space, what it is the space they want between their combs. You know, that's how they like it. And if you give them that appropriate bee space, they'll build to that area, and then they'll stop. And what that does is that makes you able to work your hive and pull these frames out.
Okay.
And people always ask me, the first question I get asked is, how do they make it?
Yeah.
You know, how do they do that?
So I just want to pause real quick.
Okay.
If this was fresh, there no bees had ever touched it, what would this look like?
Just like this right here.
Just like this right here.
Just like this right here.
So this is
this
artificial.
This is called wax foundation.
Okay.
It has wire frame. I recommend wire frame.
So there's some thin wires going
vertically. I do this myself. It's a process. You can buy it like this.
Yeah.
First time beekeeper, I recommend buying it like this.
Okay.
If you're a little bit of a handyman,
yeah.
You know, if you're a little bit of a handyman, you could do it. It's not that hard. But you know, if you're not that good with a hammer and
if you're the kind of person that's gonna say, you know, if you're gonna be a little more
and you're not gonna save that much money.
Yeah.
$20-$30 is all you'll save, it's gonna take you a couple hours to do it. And you know, you can spend $20-$30 more and it's done for you.
If you feel like doing a weekend project.
I rarely do it myself. Okay. Honestly, I don't do it myself because it is a pain.
Yeah.
It takes a while, and like I said, the money difference really doesn't. It does if you're doing 1,000 of them. You know,
it might be. I mean, it could be argued that the type of thing could be good just to know how it's done. And, you know,
and that is a good argument. You know, the actual trade and the hobby of beekeeping.
Maybe your first couple times do it, and then
the
knowledge.
I would recommend, like I said, buying it first. And then as you go on per year, your second year, because they're an investment.
When the stakes are lower.
Yes, yes. You want your first year to go right because your first year is the most important year.
Okay.
First year is also the hardest year as a beekeeper. Okay. That's the year that you're trying to build your hive up. So you'll start off with this right here, and this is just wax foundation. It's very thin. I can break a piece off actually.
So it actually looks. So there's a very thin layer of wax that looks very similar to a honeycomb.
Honeycomb. Yep.
But it's sort of like attached to these vertical wires that are in the wooden frame.
Yes, that's correct.
And it looks, looking closely at it, it's. Now looking much closer, it's obviously not actual. Well, yeah, some spots it kind of is. Some spots
that is where the bees have built on it.
Oh, they've already built on it. But down here is where.
This is what it looks like when it goes in.
Actually, yeah, it's a very MC Escher kind of tessellation cube thing going on.
Yeah, I see that. Yeah. So the honeycomb shape, what would you call it? Is that a hexagon?
Yeah, they're hexagons.
They're hexagons.
Well, that's why I say, like, if you look at it, if you were to look at like an MC Escher thing,
they don't line up.
They're
on both sides, and that's why
because it's three-dimensional. On one side it has a hexagon raised, the other side has the opposite hexagon raised.
Correct.
Basically. Yeah,
that's correct. And
that's
so
cool. That's really neat.
Cool little tidbit of information on the hexagon honeybee comb shape was why did bees do this configuration? Why didn't they just make squares? You know, why didn't nature do that? Why did nature pick the particular shape? And I read an article once online, and I know I'm wrong on this, but I think it was the mid 19th century, 1800s, sometime in there, as a professor at an English college or something. But he asked that same question. He pondered that same question, and a brilliant mind like him was able to figure it out. So he did the math. He was a math professor, and he did the math, and he figured out the shape of it is actually the most efficient way to store material for the least amount of material used to make the storage. Better than squares, better than all that because of the way they share the angles and the amount of material, and it's the most efficient shape there is. Period.
So maybe way back when bees were evolving, there were maybe a species of bees that made a less efficient.
Very
shape.
possible.
I don't even want to speculate on what the shape might have been,
Yeah.
but it might have been a different shape.
Could, yeah.
And therefore they weren't as likely to survive, and they died, or who knows? We'll never know. You know.
Yep. And
Probably not.
I
but-
mean, I don't know. That's a good point.
Yeah,
Maybe. Yeah. I mean,
you got-
there had to
did
be
they
a starting
just-
point. Yeah,
Well,
exactly.
I mean, I guess the question is, did they start with the most efficient,
Did-
and it just happened?
Did one of them come out there and build like a square one, and
Yeah,
her
like,
sister
hey,
went,
hey, dummy,
hey,
we should-
nah, check this out.
I'm doing hexagons over here, man.
Yes. But so that's what they start off with, and so your bees will spend almost their entire first year. Right now, beekeepers are getting hives. It is late February, almost March, and beekeepers are starting to buy their bees and get hives. I had a friend of mine. She had bought a book, and I messaged her the other day and told her like sweet, and she's like, "I'm getting my hives tomorrow," and I thought that was so cool because her first experience with bees was with me on we were actually on a bee removal, which is a very intimidating first experience. You know, tearing into an old barn and seeing a hive that's been there for 10 to 15 years probably.
Wow.
I mean, yes, it was the biggest one I'd ever seen. And she was just like a champ, you know, never got scared, and her love for him.
I just had a spider walking on me.
Yeah, there might be a spider.
Yeah, it's a spider.
It is.
Little guy. Yeah, he's walking on my leg.
Check me out. Probably came out of this beehive. I'm
Yeah,
sure
anyway.
that's exactly where it came out
Oh yeah,
of.
probably, huh?
Yeah, that's exactly because I had it outside in the barn.
Now, before we go any further, I do want to ask
Okay.
you, what would happen if you put bees in this thing and it didn't have that wax kind of
Very good
membrane?
question.
Because they're gonna start somewhere anyway.
Yes.
But
So, I'm gonna hold the box up again, and you can see that they're like a filing cabinet. They're
Right.
in line,
Sure.
like that. And so, I want the bees to build honey down each rail.
right.
And if they didn't have that on there, they might build it up and
Oh.
down. And at that
Oh,
point, you
okay.
can't pull a hive out, and you
Right,
can't extract
right,
the honey. You
right.
can't do nothing with it. And
So the whole
it be-
purpose is because you need to be able to get in there later.
this is
move
the
them out,
farming.
yeah.
Move them around, look at them, check for diseases. You know, make sure they're doing well. You know,
Yeah,
and make sure
yeah.
everything's okay, and you know, to get the honey at the end of the
Yeah,
year.
because obviously, if it was anything else, you would just damage the whole thing, rip it apart.
and you would end up killing the hive.
Right,
You would
right,
destroy. You would
okay.
do so much damage to the hive that the bees would actually probably leave because at that point, your house
just
is
for all they know, a bear just came in
and the house
just
is
shredded,
totaled,
yeah.
and you're like, well, we got to start over. You know,
Yeah.
it's so bad that there's no point even trying to rebuild. So they take all they can with them, and they might go to a tree 10 feet away, and they might go a quarter mile away.
Wow.
You know, they can leave, and so that is very important. Never just put them in there
Yeah.
without them. Never put a frame, leave out a frame. You can take them out, you know, take them out for a day or a couple of days, or maybe 2 or 3 days.
Yeah.
But don't leave them out long because they'll do that. They'll fill that area up.
Right,
Because they
yeah.
want to maintain that bee space I was
So
telling you about.
so that brings up an important point. The fact that box that you have is filled up is very important.
Yes.
So the spacing there is already been calculated
Yes.
by people who did
Yes,
all the
that's
experiments
correct.
and blah blah blah. Like so it's frame,
Yes, that's correct.
beginning to end, and be for exactly those purposes.
Yes.
You don't want the
And
bees. You
there's-
don't want to leave the bees to their own devices.
There's
too
other
much.
ways that you can get more honey, and you can take out a frame and space them. But I don't recommend a first year beekeeper doing that.
Okay.
They can, you know, if they're really into it and they read about it, you can do that. And you know, if that's how you like to do it, you can get a little bit extra honey for your each super.
Because there'll just be more
Space.
yeah, more
Exactly. You're
spread.
not. Yeah. Exactly. And you can do that, but you know, like I said, if you're really trying to just do the bare minimum and just like, you know, you want bees and you want to take care of them yourself, but you know, you're not trying to go all out and farm with them. You know, you just want to do your part and help the bees out.
So let me ask you a question then. If you did go down that road of doing the thing that gets you more honey, does that mean that there's more bees in the hive?
It all depends on the year and
Okay.
the bees themselves. I have bees I call lazy bees. I'll have a hive. Say we have 2 brand new hives, and we put them nothing but wax foundation, and I put them right beside each other. I put the bees in at the same exact time, and then over a 3 or 4, 5, 6 month period, I keep returning the check on the hive, and at the end of the year, the one hive maybe just still have wax foundation in the top super, not filled it all out
really?
yet, and
Okay.
like there's honey elsewhere, but they still haven't built all their comb. Where the hive next to it, and I may have 2 of these boxes, 2 supers. That's what we call them, on
Yep.
top of a hive body, which we'll get to next.
Okay.
But then with the other hive next to it, I might have 6 supers on there, and they are just pumping out honey and pumping out, and like I'm having to actually harvest early because this hive is so just
And
strong.
it's not necessarily proportional to how many bees are there.
Yeah.
It is,
The
okay.
more they are, the better worker are. It has a lot to do with just their behavior, the queen, you know, and how many eggs she lays, and you know that a saying in beekeeping is you ask 3 beekeepers the same question, you'll get 5 different answers.
I gotta say, reef keeping is the same
Yeah.
way. That's why it's such a difficult hobby, because anything you look up, you'll find two schools of
Yeah,
thought
it's
on
very
it.
opinionated.
And you'll have people that say, no, you absolutely cannot do that. It won't work. Those two fish will kill each other, blah, blah, blah. And other people say, well, I've had those two fish in my tank for 10 years, and
Yep.
they're fine. You know,
Yep.
it's just,
And
I imagine.
farming,
Yeah, yep,
farming, Mother Nature.
yep.
But yeah.
So what you're saying is that they won't, if you give the bees this giant complex, they won't necessarily fill it out.
No, they won't
But
use it all
might.
until they need to.
Until they need to.
And
okay.
they'll if you buy a big giant house, but you don't have enough stuff to fill up the first 2 floors,
You're not going to spread all your
you're
stuff
not going to spread
out.
all
You're
it's
just
all
gonna
out. You're going to
yeah.
keep it there because you're not going to say you have your first floor. That's where your bedroom's at. You're not going to. You have a kitchen in there, but you have also a kitchen upstairs. You're not going to put all your food in the upstairs kitchen.
Right,
Your
right.
bedroom's right there, so you're going to put it close to you.
Right, right.
And that's what that comes to. Is just the
Okay.
closest one. They're trying to be as efficient as possible.
Right. Because
You know?
they're already spending so much time
Yes.
outside, going back
Exactly.
and forth.
And
Being inside, they obviously want to be super efficient with their space.
yes,
hence
yeah.
the
Well, there's
hexagon.
different jobs,
Yep.
and the bees that are inside judge that. The bees that go outside, that's all they do is fly back
in
and
and out,
forth.
in and out.
There's a person that when they land, it comes up to them and they do a little dance
Yep.
and they
Like
communicate.
the air traffic control.
Literally,
Yeah.
and
Crazy.
yes, mind blowing.
That is
Yes.
wild.
And they tell them what they have and what they want, and if they have what they want, they take it from them, and that bee knows to go get that again, and they'll go get that same thing. Now, if she tells them what they have, she says, "I want the bee that's unloading." Tells the forager bee, the bee that just went out and collected, that I want water, and she has nectar. She will go on to the next one until she finds that one. So that bee will have to sit there with that water, like at a truck stop, waiting to be unloaded. And it will know the next time it gets after it gets unloaded, the bee finally comes and says, "I want water." It will know to go get nectar next time, because that's what the hive wants.
Right.
It's one hive, one mind. They
Interesting.
all
Wow.
operate.
That's wild. Man.
Yes.
I've heard there's a guy named Dr. Chris Ryan that I follow his podcast a little bit. He's written a good book, but he has a theory about humans actually that when we reach a certain population point, there's a tipping point of human population that we're all interacting with each other, that we also become sort of like in the same way that locusts,
Yes.
grasshoppers become locusts at a certain population tipping
Yes.
point. He thinks that humans kind of do a similar thing, and
Oh,
that's kind
I
of
mean,
what we're experiencing right now. I don't want to
definitely.
get too far down that tangent.
Yeah, that's
but-
definitely a different path. But no,
Yeah.
no, you're definitely right. I would agree. That's with everything. Overconsumption of anything can become a bad thing.
Sure.
Yeah. Even us as humans, a lot of us like to think that we're doing a great thing. It's just.
But
when you
look
get
at the greater picture, like
when you get too many of them, it just overpopulates. Like you said, a plague of locusts. One grasshopper doesn't mean no harm.
Nope.
Then you don't think nothing bad about it. But when you have millions of them, oh, it's a plague.
You wipe out a farm and
Exactly.
in a couple
Exactly.
hours. Yeah.
Exactly.
So what you have here is the
All right. Yeah. So on the next thing, we're getting to the hive body, and I'll
Hive
hold
body,
it up.
okay.
And this is the biggest box you have. I believe it's 12 inches deep. Most of them.
Looks like it.
And they have a lid on them. Most of them have a reflective light to help reflect the sun. And
for heat purposes.
For heat
Yeah,
purposes
yeah.
and stuff like that.
So it's similar to what you just had, the box, except it does.
Same material.
It has a lid that comes off. Yeah,
Yes.
built the same way,
This-
same dimensions, length and width.
Yes, this box is also painted. It's finished.
Okay.
You have to use, I think it's a non-latex. I don't paint my boxes. I usually buy them painted. These are customers' boxes. If you first year, you don't have to worry about painting them, but after a year or two, you need to eventually put a layer of paint
Right.
on them.
Okay.
Obviously, you don't want to use toxic paint. Look up.
Just for longevity of
Longevity
the
of
wood
the box.
itself.
Yes,
yeah. 'Cause
exactly.
If it's untreated,
It's raining out
nature's
there.
going to take its course. Yeah.
Exactly. So then you have your lid
Okay.
that goes underneath your top, and what that is just airflow. It has they all have this little groove right there. It's just a flat piece of. You want to describe it to them?
Yeah, I mean it's just a basic looks like about a light. What is this? It's all probably pine or birch or something.
Yep.
And it's just a basic frame. It almost looks like a picture frame, but instead of a picture, it's just got a thin, maybe
3/16.
Yeah, 3/16 piece of plywood.
Yep. And what that does is that helps with venting the hole in the top of it. And in the summertime, we'll actually prop the back of the lid up with a stick.
Okay.
Some beekeepers are a little more fancy. I look on the ground next to me. There's usually a stick. I pick it up, I snap it, and I put it in the back of it, and it does the job.
You don't use the $15
Yes.
adjustable.
You
clamp
can
lid
get
thing,
get fancy with it, but You know, that's the way I do it.
Yeah.
That's the way I do it.
So what I'm seeing now is that obviously it's just like what we were looking at before,
Yes.
except this taller and
These are
also
bigger.
Also the filing cabinet style
Same
situation
exact
going on,
setup. Same.
but they're all taller. Right?
Yes,
And
that's
again,
correct.
front to back, it's one next to the
You
other.
need bee
nothing-
space. All
Yep.
that gets the same
Yep.
thing. Same thing applies.
That's,
And
that
so these are
phrase- That
bigger.
phrase kills me, man. Bee space, of course.
Bee space.
Of course, yeah.
Bee space. There's a name. So this is the same thing. This is an empty frame.
Yep.
It's the same thing. What they do, they store honey, lay their eggs in it,
Yep.
put pollen in it, and I don't have no honey in any comb to show you, but I do have eggs and pollen. This right here was some damaged comb, and
Okay.
so what I did, I cut it out, and
Yep.
so I could put that back in there with the bees, and what the bees will do, they'll just take it out, and I'm sure it's one thing you immediately notice with this frame versus this frame.
Yeah, it's much darker.
It's much darker.
One of these like a nice yellowy
Yes.
kind of. It's almost actually the same color as the wood almost.
Yes.
Where this one
Yes.
is like a deep brown, almost
Deep,
like a
dark
red,
brown.
reddish kinda,
Yes.
Yeah.
And what that is this comb was probably made this year,
Yep.
and this one probably at least 3 years old.
Wow.
Yeah, this comb's really old. You wouldn't want to make the honey that you eat with comb like this.
Okay.
It just wouldn't taste nearly as good. It'd have like almost a griddle taste to it. They seems like
Interesting.
versus like this
Now,
clean,
what is
pretty
it?
comb.
What is it that is it just a buildup
Age.
of chemicals
Yeah,
and stuff
just
in there? Over
the honey,
time
the
that-
dark, the honey's dark, and the color of the honey just naturally stains it over time. And the
Interesting.
age, the moisture going in and out, them constantly building on it,
Right.
it.
Right.
And
And
they'll
whatever
actually
other kind of particulates that they have on them.
and
Yeah.
like I mentioned earlier, in a beehive removal that was on the biggest wild hive I'd ever seen, and they weren't using but maybe a quarter of this whole entire comb they'd made because the comb had gotten so old that they actually moved on and quit using it. And I guess because it just changes the flavor in the honey, and they don't
Whoa.
like it. And so a lot of people that buy honey, if you do like honey, you buy natural honey, raw honey,
Yeah.
you'll notice it'll crystallize.
Right.
It'll
right.
crystallize,
Yep.
and it was the first time I'd ever seen this, but there was actual crystallized honey in this hive, and I didn't know that was a thing. I've talked to other beekeepers,
And the bees can't do anything.
and
with
they can't.
that.
Yeah, exactly. So they just moved on. They've left.
So
it.
maybe they had made a whole bunch
They
of
were
honey, and
so
maybe for some
good.
reason
They were
they're-
so efficient. There was a year, one summer, that the weather was right, and they were so efficient. The queen they had that year was so good that they made so much honey that they weren't able to use it that winter or the following summer or spring, and that eventually it went bad, and they left it behind.
So, all right, well, this might be a dumb question, but
Mm-hmm.
could it also be something like that? Might have been some problem with the hive that a bunch of them died off and they couldn't use it or something.
No, I wouldn't say that.
Or is it just that they were just
you
they
know,
just overproduced?
Overproduce. They do overproduce, and that's why we're able to farm like we do.
That's a very important, and I want to emphasize that because that was something I was curious about myself. Was that are we taking something that the bees need?
No.
No, because you only take what is it?
Okay, so the way that works is we give them these boxes, and these
Yep.
boxes make it so efficient for them. Everything's perfect. It's the perfect conditions for them to thrive and to make this honey.
That's the key. That's the key.
Yes,
there.
it's
You're-
these boxes.
You're not just
They're-
putting a bee on a tree and saying build.
They
this
don't make
thing.
that much honey in the wild.
Okay.
No.
Okay. See, I didn't.
See, the wild ones don't make that much honey.
Even the stuff that I've watched doesn't explain that.
No.
It doesn't say that they don't make this much honey in the wild. You give them these pristine conditions.
Yes,
and
exactly.
therefore, they overproduce, and we can go in and harvest the honey.
And what
they
it
can
is
just keep on.
that these bees aren't native to here. They're Italian bees.
Yep,
They're
from
from
Europe,
Italy.
yep,
They're,
yep.
yep. And so the weather's a little bit better here, and they can produce better, and they end up producing more than they need for
So
the
that
winters.
on top of the pristine box
Exactly.
efficient,
It
yeah.
all makes it more efficient. And that's why we're not taking what they need. We leave usually at least I prefer to leave 2 full supers for the bees in case it's a harsh winter.
Could you
because-
put a percentage on it? Like, would you say you take maybe 30% of the
No,
or
because
less
it's
than
different
that?
every year. Because
Oh,
they might
okay.
they don't necessarily make the same
So
thing
you kind
every
of
year.
get a gauge yourself. Of
Every
what you
year's
can-
different. People, that's a common question I get. How much honey do you get a year? I've had years where I got probably over 20 gallons of honey, and then I think this last year,
Well, okay, so if you took 20 gallons that year, how many gallons would you say you left behind? Like another 20 or like 40?
probably
because they're constantly
12,
making it anyway.
13. You know,
Okay,
So
okay.
you-
Well, yeah, 'cause
that's how much they overproduce.
Okay.
That's how
okay.
much they overproduce. So I mean, over 50%.
It
Over,
varies.
yeah, probably almost over 50% of what they make.
Wow.
Yeah, easily I can take from them, and because they don't need it, and they won't eat all their honey that I leave them.
Because it'll just crystallize and go bad, and nobody can
And-
use it. Yeah.
And I don't leave them exactly. And I don't leave them so much that they would do that. They will use that the amount that I leave them. You know, bee keepers have learned over the years. You know how much to leave them.
Yeah.
It will cover it. You know, that's how much they need.
Yeah,
we know how long our winters are here. We know how much bees tend to eat during the winter. You know, that's how much they need. And then on late winter, on the warm days like here in February, we start to feed our bees a sugar water mix. And again, that's another topic for another day. We feed them that, and then what they do is if we check a hive, like I did today, I checked some hives, and one hive was doing really well, and one hive didn't make it through the winter, which is a fairly common thing, and that's why, again, for new beekeepers, always buy 2 hives, don't just buy one, because
you're putting all your bees in one basket.
Exactly. All your bees in one box, I guess you could say. Because, you know, your hive might die, and it really stinks after you spend a whole year building this hive up and all this time and effort, and it dies, and then the next winter, and you got to start all over the next year. Versus if you have 2 and one of them dies, well, you know, you still have one, and the second year is so much easier because your comb is drawn. The comb takes 3 times longer in the amount of energy to as the honey. It takes, I think, 3 pounds of honey to make 1 pound of comb.
Okay, so in the first year, they're making honey and they're also building up the
yes,
thing.
Yeah, they're building their house,
the factory and their house
yes.
in one. Yeah,
all together. Yes, that's correct.
So the actual cells themselves, they're called cells, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Can be multi-purpose.
No. Yes, they can. We're gonna pull one. I'm looking for a particular one now. In here.
Because obviously they all look, to the untrained eye, they all look the same.
Yes.
All the frames look the same. They all have you know.
Yes. So
there's no shape variation.
Yeah.
Oh, I just gave myself a sliver.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I just swung my finger across it.
I'm sorry.
That's all right. I'll deal with that later.
So
yeah, to the untrained eye, they all look the same,
Mhm.
and you know some of them look like they have a cap on them.
Yep.
Obviously, there's a bit of waviness to the actual depth
Yes.
of the, you know.
This is a better looking one. Go ahead. Yeah.
So my question really is like,
What is the difference in the
yeah,
comb?
yeah. What's the difference?
How do you
I know
tell
some
the
of them
difference?
have babies, some of them are
Yeah.
full of honey. I don't.
And so it'd be hard to see on the camera because it's pretty small. Maybe he can crop in some pictures right here.
Sure.
But here's a queen cell.
Okay.
And so, you know, this is where the queens live.
So what I'm actually seeing is some very almost like H.R. Geiger-esque kind of like thing going on here, where you have like this kind of gentle waviness over the frame in the hive, but then you have like this kind of divot and this almost like kind of egg sac looking thing there.
That's just them. You know, that one fell asleep on the job for a little bit, and she got a little sloppy. That's all that is.
Well, what would it normally look like?
There's another one right there.
Oh, okay. So
there's another one right there.
Oh, okay. So it's really
But the
just like
big thing is that they're facing downward.
right facing down, and it's a
They're
larger
facing
cell.
down, and they're a larger cell. That's correct.
And the reason, so all right, so what makes just logical sense to me is that since it's a larger cell, okay, so this is interesting. So what I'm seeing here, these are all very uniform across here, but then you get down here and these are larger.
That's the build out. So that was the comb, that bare sheet of frame I have. They built this themselves.
So the reason
they
these
built.
are this
They
size-
built off this.
Right.
They kind of went and built their own right here,
And they're a little
they're
bigger.
not quite as perfect.
They're really not.
Oh, they're
that's
not quite as
interesting.
perfect, but-
so left to their own devices,
And
there's a little less perfection.
There's
in
I mean, and I hate to say that because you know that it is so perfect.
it's perfect enough. If
Yes,
there is such
I
a
mean,
phrase, yeah.
it is so perfect. So I'm not trying to downgrade the work
No.
they do and they will make perfect comb, and
Sure.
even left on them. But when they get down and there's like you can see there's the wood right there.
Yeah.
They have a tendency to do stuff like that. You know, they'll kind of just build it out, but like you see in this one, it's actually completely flat.
Yeah, that's
very
much more
flush.
flat. Yeah.
You know, these girls right here, you know, they were just kind of, you know, they're not having a good day
Might
that
have
day.
rushed through the job. A
They
little
were
bit.
rushing,
Yeah,
you
sure,
know.
sure.
The queen was probably around raising hell, you
Yeah.
know, and they were just rushing,
Looking
you know,
over their
because you
shoulder,
know
yeah.
they're having to build these queen cells, and they're like that means we're killing this girl. God, I hope she don't find out, you know.
So okay. So
So this is bad.
There's 2 queen cells here.
Yes, this is bad as a beekeeper to see on your first year of your hive. What this means is that there's a problem. Something's wrong. What the bees have went through, the queen has went through, or the bees have, and they've laid this queen cell.
Okay.
So we're gonna dive into the bees a little bit more now. There's 3 types of bees in the hive.
Mm-hmm.
There's the worker bee.
Mm-hmm.
There's the drone,
Okay.
and then there's the queen.
Okay.
Okay, the drone is a male. They are, you'll never see them unless you're a beekeeper in a hive. You'll never see a drone bee just flying around on the flower.
Okay.
They don't leave the hive unless they're on their mating flight, and the other worker bees actually kill them off every
Which is
fall.
kind of funny because, like, in the year 2018, we think of the word drone, we think of seeing something flying.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we call them a drone because they're just kind of mindless. You
Okay.
know,
Oh,
they just have one job. They just
Yeah.
hang out in the hive. They get fat. They're actually a lot bigger than a honeybee. You know, a honeybee's pretty small. A drone would probably about the size of my pinky.
Wow.
The end tip of my
Wow.
pinky, like, you know, that first one. They're a lot bigger. They look just like it, identical. They have bigger eyes, and you could probably put in some pictures if you wanted to right here and show them because I don't obviously have bees in my house. And
their purpose is
their
what?
purpose is mating. So
They're
queen,
they're just studs.
yes, they're just studs. So that means they are unfertilized eggs. Worker bees can lay eggs, and they can lay drones. They're not fertilized. So what that means, if the colony has collapsed, the queen has died. So they're freaking out. When you go into a hive,
Which could happen for any number
a
of
number of
reasons.
reasons, age, you know, something she might have got sick, you know, a number you might have accidentally squished her, God forbid.
Yeah.
You know, I mean that's like always the worst nightmare. You
Oh
know,
my
you
God.
squishing the queen. I've never done it, and I haven't heard any horror stories of people doing it. But you know, it's just like something you always worry about.
Oh man.
Because there's one in
I
there.
never even thought
You can squish the others. You don't want to, of course, but you can squish the others. But there's one bee in there you can't squish.
Oh,
you know, you got to be careful with her. She is
But with
everything.
that being said, the rest of the bees know what to do if.
Yeah, so the
God
queen
forbid,
the queen has died. The queen died in this colony.
Okay.
I'm seeing this because I'm seeing these cells. Because
Now, would they normally be this close to each other, or is it just?
Yes, they laid out a couple. There might be another 2 in here somewhere, and I just haven't found them yet.
Okay.
But yeah, she'll normally lay 2 to 3 of them.
Okay.
And the first one that hatches wins. She's the next queen.
Okay, so you said one of the what are the other bees called?
The workers and the drones.
The workers. Okay, so the workers can lay the eggs.
The workers can lay
So the
drone
worker-
eggs. They can't make a queen.
So who can make a queen?
A worker that's been mated with a drone. So they have to lay the drone first. The drone has to be born, reach
Okay.
maturity. Then they'll.
See, this is the tricky thing that I haven't quite been able to wrap my head
This
around.
is a little bit deeper in the beekeeping and the life of bees.
Well, the thing that fascinates me is what I've read too is that the hierarchy of a bee's family tree follows the Fibonacci sequence.
I'm not familiar with that.
Okay, I'll edit out us doing this research, but I wanna show it to you because I was really hoping you didn't know this.
Okay.
Because it's really cool that I can teach you something
Okay.
right now. So check. All right, I'm gonna look this up real quick, and then we'll kind of recap in
All
a
right.
more formal way. So do you know what the Fibonacci sequence is?
I do not.
So the Fibonacci sequence, I'll just it's a sequence that appears in nature, and what it does, the way if you were to write it out, it's if you were to you start with 0, and then it goes 0 and 1, right? So you start with 0 and 1, and I don't know the reasoning exactly, but you start with 0 and 1, and then you add those 2 together, and you get 1. Right?
Yes.
And then you add the next 2 numbers together. So you have 0, 1, 1. So you add 1 and 1 together, you get 2. Then you add 2 and 1 together, you get 3. You add 2 and 3 together, you get 5. You add 3 and 5 together, you get 8. 8 and 5 is 13. 13 and 8 is 21. 21 and 13 is,
and so forth.
So it goes up, but it increases very quickly.
Yes.
But this sequence of numbers appears in nature a lot.
Okay.
And it creates if you do certain math, I don't know the ins and outs of it, but if you do certain math, you end up with certain kinds of spirals that show up in sunflowers.
Really?
They show up in the shell. I'm pretty sure the shell of the nautilus.
Oh.
But if you follow, let's see. I'm just gonna Google Fibonacci bees. Let's see if I can get a picture. Because you're gonna understand part of this that I don't quite have my head wrapped around. I don't. Let's see. Because of the way that bees can lay eggs, it creates a Fibonacci sequence. So, all right. So we'll look at this together. So you have a female bee, right?
Yes.
That can only lay a male.
Yes.
So it's always going to go 1-1.
Yes.
Female can only lay a male, but the male can lay a male or a female.
No. The way that would work is a a worker bee can lay an egg, but is unfertilized. A worker
Right.
bee can only lay
An
a female.
Okay.
Then that male would have to breed with another worker bee,
right.
and then she could lay a fertilized egg, which would become a queen. That worker bee would never become that queen.
Okay, so so the offspring of the male could
so
be a male.
there would be another line that came down to
Okay,
the
let me
male
see if I
that
can-
went them together.
Let's see. Let me see if there's a better picture. Because let's see.
There you go. Maybe something like that.
We'll see. This is
It looks like going the other way though.
a male and a female. Okay. Oh, so it does go the other way. Okay. So I think. Okay. So it's back. That picture was backwards, basically. Let's see. Okay. So yeah, it was kind of backwards. Let me see if I can get it explained verbally. Male bees are produced from the queen's unfertilized egg.
Yes.
So that a male bee has only one parent.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
A mother and no father,
Okay.
right?
Yes.
The female worker bees have two parents.
Yes.
Since a male and a female queen have to mate to make it. So the Fibonacci ends up showing up because you have this lineage
Okay.
of
The way it goes up.
and because they only have a single
Yeah.
parent, but then it goes down. So it does the 1, 2,
Yes.
3, 5 because of the way that the bees
Mhm.
without getting too dry and
Yeah.
getting too into it, but you see that it's because of the way that bees can only lay eggs certain ways.
Yeah.
It creates the Fibonacci sequence, which
I mean,
is
I'd have to
fucking bananas.
wrap my mind more around it to make
well,
a
check it out.
valid.
Just,
I'll have to check
for now,
that
just
out.
take
Yeah.
my word for it.
I believe
because
you.
It's very
I believe
very
you.
real.
Yeah.
But it's just another instance of this sequence appearing in nature,
Yes.
and it ties into
Very
exactly
cool.
what you're just saying.
Very
yeah,
cool.
very cool. So we can maybe touch on that another time
Yeah.
when we sit down again.
But so let's go on, and we're gonna
Yeah.
talk about the queen cells. So something's went wrong. They have laid a queen. They're trying to make more bees, another queen, and there could be
Yep.
a lot of things. She could just be getting old.
Yep.
She could have been just getting old, and that she wasn't laying as many eggs. So the workers are like,
what? How old is an old queen?
So
would you say?
and queens can live anywhere from 1 to 3 years.
Okay.
Typically.
Okay.
There's been like bees that have been found that lived 5 years. I think one time in university somewhere they had one for 8 years, but I think about her last year she was like laying like 2 or 3 eggs a day. Where a queen in her prime will lay about 2,000 eggs a day.
Wow.
Yes.
Now, how do you know how old the queen is? Just because you know when it was born, you keep
Yes.
track of it.
Yeah,
Okay.
because of these little cells. A good beekeeper.
There'd be no other way to know.
Yeah,
really,
that's
right?
right. And you might get a new queen and you never knew it. The turnaround time is very quick.
Interesting.
And she might have laid a new. She might have been getting old.
How
so-
long does a bee take to go from egg to
The
functioning
queens
adult?
the queens are the fastest. It's usually 6 days from when they're hatched.
Because humans,
she lays an egg.
Humans baby to functioning adult is about
Yes.
25 years
Yes.
or so.
Yeah. So the egg is laid,
Yep.
and then it hatches after about 3 to 6 days. It's a little bit different for each one, but then
Yep.
the larvae stage is different for each one. The queen is actually the fastest.
Okay.
Because it's funny how that is.
Because there's some necessity.
the
to the
necessity,
situation, right?
that's that's the natural selection coming in.
Sure.
The nature part of it, the human eye is like one of the fastest healing parts of the body,
'Cause
and
it's
that's
so
such an
important,
important,
yeah,
vital
yeah.
part of our body.
Right.
So the worker bee lives for 12. So it takes 8 days for the queen. The worker bee, your average bee, takes 12 days,
Okay.
and the drone takes 14 and a half days.
Okay.
And that's after they've hatched out of their egg into the pupae state, as it's called, or you'd call it a larvae, and they're growing in there.
Now, okay, I just want to I want to just interject real quick because I just noticed that you said 14 and a half days.
Yes.
That's a very specific amount of
That's
time.
what the textbook
And
said.
my assumption for the reason that you could even put that specific amount of time on it is because and I don't want to go too off on this tangent. We can go down there whenever you're ready. But because there are very precise conditions inside the beehive
Yes.
that are consistent.
They keep the humidity at a certain level. They
The
like
temperature.
they try to keep it at a certain level. It becomes difficult for
It's
them.
a very fine.
It's a very fine line.
It's not a big wavy curve.
Yes.
So to say 14, because like the gestation period of a human, we say 9 months, but there's babies that are born 2 months earlier. They're
Yes,
fine.
exactly.
I mean, with some help,
Exactly.
but point being that 14 and a half days, like you're saying, that's down to a few hours. So
Yes.
that's accurate,
Yeah, and
so-
people ask them like, how do you know that? And I'm like, well, I haven't been there with stopwatch.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
You know,
You're
she
you're
she
working
laid
off
it.
of
Information that I've
that's-
gathered. Again,
that's
beekeeping's
fine.
very
That's
opinionated.
beside the point. But what
Yeah.
I'm saying is, the key factor is that the conditions are so precise from beehive to beehive.
Yes, that it's consistent.
That number.
Oh,
right,
that number's always the same.
Right.
Yes, that's correct. And you can know that. So every time you check your hive, they say it's good to see your queen, but it's hard. In 80,000 bees, you're looking for one.
Right.
And she looks different, but it ain't that much.
Right. She's not like a totally different
Yeah,
color.
no, and you can buy a queen that is marked. I recommend that. I like to get mine marked. All it is, they put a little drop of paint on there. Like a lot of mine are baby blue, like a Carolina blue. And they stick out like a sore thumb. Go Tar Heels, yeah. They stick out like a sore thumb.
Yeah.
Yep, I don't like Clemson. I'll put it out there.
All right, take it easy. This is not a sports podcast.
All right. But anyway, so that's queen cells. Those are worker cells. And then after these are hatched, the workers will typically break them down.
Okay.
So that tells me that these didn't hatch. They didn't make it.
Oh, okay.
They didn't make it.
Wow.
The cycle wasn't quick enough because they'll typically tear this down and they'll make perfect honeycomb out of it. They'll optimize their space.
just
You know,
fix it over,
the baby has grown up. You know, we need to turn their nursery into a bedroom.
So what do they do with that? They
reuse
do
it.
they eat it or they just chew it up and spit it
They
out?
they
or?
chew it up and they reuse it.
Okay.
They just reuse it. Put
And the
it somewhere
honeycomb
else.
itself is a different material. It's a wax, obviously,
Yes,
right?
yes.
So do the bees that
You can feel it.
yeah, very obviously wax
Yeah.
touching it.
Touch it.
Yeah, so do they and the only thing they're going out and collecting is what, water and pollen, right?
Nectar also.
Well, yeah,
yes.
nectar,
Water,
nectar,
pollen, and
water,
nectar.
and pollen.
That is
right.
what. That is it. Yes.
And the wax is just the result.
They
of
use
some sort of-
enzymes in their nectar sacs, and with the water and the honey and then all of it together, and they make it out of it. Like I said, it takes 3 pounds of honey to make 1 pound of wax.
Wow.
Your wax is everything. Your wax is your gold. People always go, "Do you sell comb honey?" And I will a little bit.
Yeah.
But I don't make a lot of it because it takes 3 times the amount of time for them to make this wax as it does. So a good strong hive in the middle of summer, like a heavy sourwood flow, being that is the plant in our area.
Yep.
That we get
Sourwood, you said?
Sourwood, yeah, it's a tree.
Okay.
A lot of people think it's a flower or a bush. No, it's a tree. A lot of people don't realize that.
So that's like the primary
Yeah.
go-to for bees in this
Yeah,
area.
a lot of people always ask, like, what flowers can I plant and all that. And there's lots of flowers we can plant, but a lot of major pollen producers are trees.
Yeah,
Are trees,
that's true.
you know, and
because you see a flowering tree, there's thousands of flowers.
exactly,
on it. Yeah,
exactly. Versus that
your
dandelion.
flower garden. Yeah,
Versus that dandelion right there.
And they'll hit up that dandelion.
And
but
they will
overall, yeah.
when they start. They'll actually send out bees, scout bees. This is
Right.
getting into jobs in the hive, and there are. You know, some people say there's 8 jobs in the hive, but in the middle of summer, there are going to be like 20 jobs in the hive.
Wow.
I mean, everybody knows what to do instinctively, you know. And but they'll actually send out bees to areas, and they'll scout bee will go to an area, and she'll just check it out and look how the flow is going. That's what we call the nectar flow.
Okay.
And if it's a good flow, she'll go back to the hive and she'll feed it to the hive. And so, if the flow they're working on is starting to dry up one plant from season to season, they'll start transitioning and moving all the crews and start going to this other area. And one thing I loved about a farm I lived on in Polk County was that we had like 8 hives. And I remember one day I was going for a walk with a friend, and we were walking, and I could hear it buzzing everywhere. And there was this plant, I can't recall the plant right now, but there was a plant blooming all over, and they were all of my honeybees from all my hives working this whole entire patch. It's probably like a quarter of an acre, half acre.
That's awesome.
And they were blooming, and I do recall another time where we had planted buckwheat.
Yeah.
And that I was working in the buckwheat garden as a cover crop, and they were everywhere. They loved it. And like you'll go in there, you can be quiet, and you'll just hear the buzzing in the air. And you'll look down, and there's just the bees. There's your girls just doing their job, just doing their job.
Cool,
and you don't mess with them; they don't mess with you. But yeah, so there's different jobs. So the forager bee is one of the jobs. It's the most common bee you see. That's the bee you see when you're out and about, and that honeybee flies in your soda, and you're like, you know, or
The bee was confused.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
It smelled the sugar.
Right.
You know, so the forager bee. So that is actually the last job. That's an old bee. That's an old woman, and that's the last job. That's pretty much a bee's death sentence. is being the forager bee. When they're first born, the first job they
I
have.
imagine it's the most risky too, because
Yeah.
there's predators
Exactly,
out there. Yeah.
exactly. They most like I
Disease,
said, the worker bee usually lives for 2 to 3 months in the summer. In the wintertime, they can live longer, and the reason for that being is their last job being a forager. Most bees literally fly their wings off. They work so hard that their wings eventually give out, and they just land on the ground, and ants or exposure, or usually gets them.
Wow.
Yeah,
for the good of the
for the good of the colony.
Wow,
for the
that's
good
crazy.
of the colony.
They just tucker themselves
They
out
just,
to
and
death.
that's why in the wintertime they don't
Can
work
you imagine
as much.
that if you just like worked on a farm and they're like, hey man, we'll give we'll pay you as long as you're alive, but there's gonna be that one day where that's your last shovel full.
That's right.
You're just gonna drop, and we just gotta leave you there.
And being in the summertime is the busy time. They typically have a shorter lifespan in that time. But the first hive job they have in the hive is when they're first born. They're nursery bees. They're born and they start helping other people being born. Pulling them out. Yep. They'll go out and they'll stretch their wings.
Breastfeeding the babies. And
stuff like that. All that good stuff.
Right.
And they're actually you can attentive beekeeper, I guess it would be, that keeps an eye on his hive. You'll notice when there's hatchings and stuff like that. Big hatchings, because that evening you'll see a bunch of little bees, and they're not much different. Again. This is something you pick up over just doing it over the course of time.
Baby bees.
You can notice it. I mean, it's
Baby
very,
bees?
very
Oh
minute. It is very minute. You would never know unless you knew.
I would.
It's type deal.
Yeah.
But you'll see them and you're like, oh, she just hatched, and it's just it melts your heart.
That's
I
awesome.
love my girls. They're my bees. and it's awesome like that. And they're all different. They're like the coloring on them are like the tiger stripes.
Wow.
They're all uniquely a little different. I love my favorite personal look I like is a solid black bee with very little yellow on it.
So is that just a natural variation?
Natural variation, yeah.
Okay.
Natural variation. You'll get hives that have more black bees, and that depends on your queen. And it depends on a lot of the heritage of the queen, the different breeds over the years and her generation that have been put into it. European bees are black and dark like that, and Italian bees are more yellow, and they're so intermingled anymore.
Yeah, a lot of hybrids going.
I read an article the other day, and I didn't even realize it, but most of the queens you have are hybrids nowadays.
Which means that all the
they've just been mixed, and all that stuff like that.
And that's okay.
To the purist, I mean, you would want that pure strand. To the farmer, you'd want the hybrid. It depends on who you ask. I think that's a very
just like anything, I suppose. Yeah.
That's a very just like anything. It depends on your viewpoint.
Yeah.
And things like that.
Yeah, because I guess it could be argued that genetic diversity is good.
Mm-hmm.
Because like with think about dogs.
Like dogs, purebreds,
purebreds are all
and that's why they've done it, and that's why they bred them the hybrid like that, because they found that if you breed them like this, they're less aggressive.
Certain strengths or weaknesses.
They do better through the winter. Yeah. They produce more honey.
We've done the same thing with vegetables.
Exactly. Exactly. And so the first job is that they're nursery bees. They help the babies.
Right.
So after 2 or 3 days, I can't recall the exact time period on each strain. Like I said, it really varies, but I think it's usually 2 or 3 days. They'll go to become the undertakers. They carry out the bees that did die in the hive. The ones that did didn't land outside somewhere. They take them out and they throw them out. And the larvae that didn't hatch.
Okay.
They take them out of the hive.
What could be a reason for a larva not hatching?
Same reason, just like a miscarriage.
Whatever,
Just it didn't go right.
Because there's just so many of them.
There's just so many
to be some errors.
Exactly. Genetic errors. That egg just didn't get fertilized right, or just one thing or another.
Business as usual. Just to toss them outside.
Yeah, exactly. And so then the next job is an architect. So they're the girls, that are building the comb in the frame and all that good stuff. And I got me a cheat sheet here. And then after that are the cleaners and the honey makers. And they're the guys that keep the humidity and try to keep the mold. And, when there is damaged comb, like that queen cell I was showing you, they're the ones that come in and re-clean it up. Clean after a baby is born, or larvae are born. They leave residue in there. So they're going in there and they're cleaning it, getting ready for that. When that queen comes back around, to put another egg in there. Or for a worker bee when it comes, if it needs to put honey or pollen in there.
So is there any rhyme or reason to like which cells get eggs and which cells get honey? Because now when one of the few things I took away from that documentary I watched was that in the stack of the hive, at a certain point they put like a mesh kind of
Yes,
thing?
so that's a queen excluder.
Okay, so
Yeah.
all
All that's
eggs
for-
won't get laid.
yes.
Like in this certain one, it will just be honey.
Honey, exactly.
And there's not going to be
Exactly.
Whereas in the lower ones, it could be whatever the bees
Exactly,
decide.
and she's random about it.
Okay. Whatever she's feeling in the moment.
Exactly. She just wanders and lays eggs and brings us to the next job. There's the helper bees, and they're the bees that just pamper her. She lays 2,000 eggs a day.
They get the big fan out.
Yeah,
and feed her
exactly.
Grapes, feed her
They
grapes and
and
stuff,
you say that as a joke, but they're literally fanning her with their
Yeah.
wings.
That's so.
And
that's
they are
awesome.
literally feeding her by the mouth, bringing food to her. She does a dance. She's like, I want water. She's like, she's like 1,500 eggs deep,
Wow, wow.
into the day.
Now, is that a good thing that I tried to be funny and turned out to be accurate?
Nature.
Or would have been funnier if I was wrong and you had something else? Anyway.
Anyway, I mean, it works that way.
Yeah.
It worked that way.
That's cool, man.
And so
Yeah.
then we get back to the forager and the guard bees. So if you've ever been stung by a honeybee because you walk by a hive, it was probably a guard bee just getting a little overzealous.
Yeah.
You know, she has that stinger. She's had it her whole life. She knows she's getting old. It's about her time. And you were walking by and she was pissed off.
Today's the day.
Today's the day. She's like, somebody's going to die today.
Well, it's funny because one of the things in I'm not gonna promise I won't reference it again, but in the Bee movie, that was one of the things that they talked about.
What?
Was that they treated it very lightly
Yeah.
when a bee stung a human
Yeah.
and died. They
See,
were like,
yeah.
Man, he just was having a bad day, stung a human, and he's gone now.
Yeah.
And then they move right along. Like, it was just very casual. Like,
And
that's just
it's
how it went.
Well, wasp and yellow jackets, it seems like they just sting you. But with honeybees, I had a friend.
Now, for those who don't know,
Yes, go ahead.
entirely different animal.
Oh,
Entirely different animal.
honeybees.
They do not make honey.
Honeybees.
Yeah.
They make honey.
Yep.
They pollinate trees. They are pretty to look at.
Yep.
Wasps and yellow jackets, assholes.
Yeah. Just assholes.
That's enough
That's
said.
it.
That's
yeah.
it.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all.
Now,
That's their job in
are they-
nature.
do they
They're nature's
pollinate at
asshole.
all?
No, I don't know. They're meat eaters.
Oh, they just eat other bugs.
Yes, they're meat eaters.
Okay.
They're meat eaters.
Okay.
They're if I'm not mistaken, wasps are more closely related to ants than to
Oh
honeybees.
yeah, looking at them, that actually makes a lot of
Yes.
sense.
Are
Okay,
more
so they're just
closely
a
related.
super aggressive.
Yeah,
they're just a
flying
weaponized ant.
Yeah, weaponized ant, militarized
Wow.
ant.
A giant
Yes,
fucking ant. Yeah,
yes.
Yeah.
And but yeah, and
So you don't have to feel bad about destroying one of those hives, and they're
No.
structured completely
I
different
mean,
as well.
depending on who you ask.
Well, yeah, that's
You know,
a, that's a
you
different
shouldn't
conversation.
destroy-
I don't like to kill anything.
Yes, but if it's in my yard-
if by your front door there's a wasp nest,
things coming down.
kill it.
Things
it's
coming
done.
down.
But if by your door there's a honeybee is a bait,
Call me.
Call a beekeeper.
Call me,
Yes.
Jordan
Yep.
Braswell, White Oak Honey.
Yep.
There you go.
Exactly.
But yeah, and so that's the life cycle of them.
Yep.
And what else did we got to talk about today on our schedule?
Well, I think we're through our props.
Okay,
right?
yeah, I believe we
all
are.
through our-
Yep,
our
I've shown you
visual stuff.
everything. Yep.
Now you mentioned a segment called the good, the bad, and the ugly. You wanna
Yes.
get into that a
Okay.
little bit?
Yeah, we can
Okay.
get into that, and that is just like honeybee news.
Okay.
What's going on? That the number one question I get asked all the time was they remember seeing in the news, and it was several years ago.
colony collapse disorder?
Yes, colony collapse, CCD, colony collapse disorder. I've been a victim of it. I've had colony
Doomsday,
collapse.
basically.
Doomsday. They were
Yeah.
dying. It's the end
The
of
grocery
the
store is
world.
going to be empty.
The grocery store's going to be empty. So, what my question is one question I commonly get asked from customers and people that like bees is, what would happen if the bees if they really disappeared? Would the world end? The answer is
And we're going to go into this for those of you who have not seen the Bee movie.
yes.
So
Yeah, the answer is no. It wouldn't end.
it wouldn't end.
No, it wouldn't, because most plants are wind pollinators. First off, now grapes.
Meaning
for,
that the wind picks up the pollen.
grapes, for
drops it-
example,
Yeah.
if the bees died, grapes would not be affected.
So our wine is good.
Our
Okay.
wine is good. That's
Great.
very important.
Good to
That's the first check off the book. You know that, and you're like, whoa, we'll be all right. I'm
Yeah, we
kidding.
can
I
drink-
shouldn't say that.
We can get fucked up on wine, even if the apples are gone.
That's
yeah,
it.
yeah.
As long as I got my grapes.
Yeah.
As long as I got my red wine, I'm all right.
And there are other pollinators.
There are other pollinators. That
Yeah.
is correct. Honeybees are not bearing the load all by them. Butterflies are
Yep.
great pollinators. There is no other insect in nature, though, that can pollinate as efficiently and as much area as the honeybee can.
Okay.
They
Okay.
are the best at it. They are nature's
And also,
perfect pollinator.
butterflies don't make honey.
They don't make honey.
They don't.
They don't. They're pretty.
Yeah.
But in my opinion, I think my girls are prettier.
Yeah.
But that's just
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
That's just me. I like my tiger stripes. I like my yellow and black. I like my yellow and black. Yeah, and so the world wouldn't end, but you would lose a lot of common goods.
Yeah.
And you would still have them because of the other pollinators, but they'd be very expensive.
It'd be a lot
Almonds,
harder, yeah.
for example.
Yeah.
Almond trees are in California are very, very reliant on honeybees and pollinators. Would almonds go extinct? No. There's cases in China where the pollution has gotten so bad over there that they don't have any pollinators.
Oh my God.
They don't have the bees. They don't have the butterflies. They don't have nothing. So, but one thing China does have is a lot of people. They have a huge labor force.
Yep.
They have a huge labor force. And so what they did is they actually hired laborers to collect pollen and to go around orchards and pollinate trees. The Chinese government boasted one time, what's more efficient, the honeybee or the Chinese labor force? Scientists around the world obviously laughed at the joke.
What do they just go on, like a little brush? Of like,
a little Q-tip, and they would go through every single flower pollinating because that's how they would have to do it.
But still, no honey.
No, still no honey. That's right.
That's a big
But
loss.
so no, the world would not end. That's the one thing you can rest assured.
It would just suck a little more.
It would suck a little more. Yeah. Things like that would become very expensive. They would be a delicacy. It'd be like what is the white truffles?
Yeah,
it'd be like truffles. They'd be very expensive, and things like that. But you would still have a lot of the common goods that are reliant on wind pollinators.
Sure.
Most farming, commercialized farming, are reliant on honeybees because we have built the crop with selection around being dependent. We've realized that we can move these beehives around here and we can get more crops, and we have so many people.
And there's services of farmers will call in a beekeeper to set up a hive.
I have pollination services like that too. Yeah. And when they set up a hive, and that helps produce their crop. It bumps their crop up, and they make more money. The beekeeper gets paid. He's able to buy more bees. That pumps more bees into the air. You get more pollination. The grand circle. And so that's one thing to talk about. So CCD, from my information, what I've read recently, it's slowed down tremendously.
Yeah. Now
it's not nearly as bad as big as a problem.
Well, I think it's worth mentioning. I think the consensus has been at this point is that there are multiple factors that contribute.
Yes.
Like fungus,
that's
pollution.
Correct. That was what I was getting to next is that they don't really know the exact answer.
Yeah.
But
probably because there isn't an exact answer.
They've never been able to pin it down. But they know that it's a combination of these things. And, but in the same token, as I've hit on several times in this interview so far, is that, it's very opinionated.
Yeah.
People like to believe their own things and their own opinions. And some people think it's just because we've been keeping them in these boxes for all these generations now, and we're messing with God's perfection and nature's perfection, and we're tampering with it, and they're starting to fall apart on us. There's so much interbreeding across the whole spectrum that it's
I hadn't actually heard that reason for it.
That's not the most popular common belief. That's like I said, that's very opinionated. It's not necessarily my
belief. That might be the most depressing of the explanations.
That is the most depressing. We're killing the bees by buying more of them. No, don't buy bees. No, that is the most depressing. That's not then, but that's just an example of the opinions. But the most common is that it's a combination of everything. It's a combination of the pollution, climate change, the natural change of the climate, pesticides, everything. And lots of great steps have been taken, and we've seen improvements in some areas. But CCD is still around. It's still a problem. But on the good part, that is that we're on the upswing now. There for a while, and like I said, that's from what I understand. I haven't been seeing as much in it, as many reports as it was during I think it was the mid to late early 2010s, like 2010s.
That sounds about right, yeah.
2008, 2009, around that time period when it was a big problem. I mean, companies, farmers that spent their whole life, their livelihood, hundreds of thousands of hours working, were losing their companies overnight to this mysterious thing that there was no answer for. Yeah. And it's a horrible thing, but with science and more awareness, you can bring more funding and you can gather more answers. But that's the good and the bad and the ugly side of that. The ugly being, maybe we're doing it. The bad is that they are dying, and the good is it does seem like it's on the upswing.
Yeah, cool, man.
But that's one thing. And you got any questions, or I mean, have you heard anything?
No, I think I interrupted you as much as I could, as much as I think was appropriate with my questions. This has been very educational. I mean, I don't have anything else to add unless you have any other tidbits. We could always do it a part 2,
and we can always, I'm sure there's always more.
Yeah,
but
obviously,
we're heading to go on down any more paths would be opening another Pandora's box.
Sure.
Or B box, per se.
Well, why don't we open up and say that, anybody watching or listening, you can feel free to send us some questions.
Yeah,
we can
feel
always
free.
Do a part 2.
Yep.
And, that way, if there's stuff we don't know the answer to, we can find out and kind of do a little bit of research and revisit the topic.
And you can always message me on
Or
Facebook.
any questions that come to me, I can direct.
Super Serial?
superserialint@gmail.com.
There we go.
Hit us up, and obviously, feedback's always appreciated. So cool. Thanks a lot, man. This has been great.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome.
I appreciate it.
And we'll see you next time.
See you guys. Thank you.
Awesome, dude. That was great.
Good deal.